In most stories, the characters are what make everything click. You can have the most intricate setting, the most carefully built plot, but if the people inside it don't feel real, don't pull you in, it all starts to fall apart. That's why certain character type sticks with us. The underdog who surprises everyone, the cold genius who starts to care, the calm, calculating presence you never see panic. We are drawn to them because they promise control, precision, power, the kind that feels earned, not given. And in anime especially, the mastermind is one of the hardest archetypes to pull off, and one of the most satisfying when it's done right. You don't just watch them, you try to keep up, you want to know what they are thinking, you want to see what happens when their plan unravels. But the Apothecary Diaries isn't a story built around villains. Its conflicts are quiet, rooted in hierarchy, custom, and ignorance. People don't get into fights, they get poisoned at banquets. The tension is always there, but it's subtle. Until someone starts pushing back. Someone who doesn't want to solve the mystery, but be the one writing it. Let's go back to where the story stood before it shifted, and the quiet pressure that built until someone finally snapped it. Before Lakan appeared, the Apothecary Diaries didn't need a traditional antagonist. The show had already built tension through atmosphere, through a setting where power hides behind etiquette, and danger speaks in whispers instead of threats. There were no villains twirling mustaches, just quiet systems, unspoken rules, and characters trying to survive them. Mao Mao's role in that system is what gave the story its edge. She isn't a noble, she isn't trained, she isn't even supposed to be here. Pulled from a life in the red light district and dropped into the rigid formality of the palace. She doesn't play the game the way others do. She questions what she sees. She connects those no one else notices. And she refuses to pretend she doesn't see the road beneath the surface. She's just not afraid to name what's broken, even if we constantly hear her say that it's not her problem. The palace in many ways is a mystery in itself. Not because it's magical or expensive, but because it's so tightly controlled. Every detail, the clothing, the food, the gestures, is loaded with meaning. A hidden perfume vial, used to disguise an illegal abortive patient, nearly cost a servant her life. An anonymous note about poison is ignored, until Consort Liu's infant son dies in her arms. Everyone around Mao Mao is either hiding something or avoiding the truth altogether. And that's what makes her useful. She's not there to manipulate the system. She's just willing to ask the questions no one else wants to hear the answer to. Up to this point, the conflicts Mao Mao faces are isolated but revealing. A loyal servant accidentally kills the baby she helped raise and covers it up, not to protect herself, but to spare her mistress from grief. Fuyo, a concubine with no options left, fakes sleepwalking through the moonlit gardens, not to haunt anyone, but to avoid being bought, touched, or sold. A consort lives unloved and unseen, dismissed by her attendants, except one who treats her like a person, not an obstacle. These aren't grand dramatic battles, they are quiet tragedies, the kind that happen when no one questions what they are told. When a system becomes so rigid that even well-meaning people let one go unchallenged. And that is part of what makes the show so unique. It's not interested in big declarations of good and evil. It's interested in systems, in psychology, in survival. Mao Mao isn't fighting anyone. She's just trying to keep herself from being swallowed by a place that punishes honesty and rewards obedience. But while she's solving these problems, something shifts in the background. At the end of episode 13, a man we've never seen before appears. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't speak. He just watches Mao Mao from a distance, still, silent, deliberate. Someone new has entered the story, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like Mao Mao is watching the palace anymore. It feels like someone is watching her. When Lakan first appears, it's not with fanfare or exposition. He just is. A man in the background, watching. The show doesn't tell you who he is. It doesn't need to, because the tone changes the second he shows up. You feel it before you understand it. The pacing slows, the camera lingers, and suddenly everything feels a little less safe. This is what happens when a character isn't just introduced, but inserted, deliberately, strategically, into a world already running on quiet tension. Lakan doesn't come in to break the story, he comes in to tilt it. To shift the mess so subtly, you don't realize it's moved until the floor is already slanted. Up to this point, the Apothecary Diaries hadn't needed an antagonist. Its conflicts were social, psychological, procedural. The palace itself was the pressure. Mao Mao solved problems shaped by hierarchy, sexism, superstition. But no one was playing against her. No one was trying to pull the strings just to see what she would do. Until now. From the moment Lakan enters, everything tightens. The camera watches from over shoulders, dialogue gains weight, the show starts withholding information, letting silences stretch longer than usual, and the sense that someone is watching Mao Mao doesn't fade, it sharpens. The first time we see him clearly, it's brief. He's watching her from a distance, smiling, unreadable. She doesn't notice, but we do. And so does Jinshi. Because what is fascinating here is that the first person to react to Lakan's presence isn't Mao Mao, it's Jinshi. He knows Lakan by title, by reputation, and that alone is enough to make him uneasy. Every time Lakan appears, Jinshi tenses. He watches Mao Mao closely, tries to keep the two apart, asks more questions than usual. Not because he suspects anything specific, but because he can't read him. And in a palace built on masks, Lakan is the one man Jinshi knows better than to underestimate. That's the power of the mastermind archetype. In fiction, these characters bend stories around themselves. They are not defined by strength or emotion, but by design. Their presence rewires the narrative. Suddenly, motivations are unclear. Stakes become psychological. Every word might be a feint, every silence a signal. The great ones don't just outsmart people. They reshape the audience's sense of control. Watching them isn't about following what they do, it's about realizing what they've already done and dreading what's coming next. Lakan fits that mold perfectly. He doesn't posture, he doesn't explain. He plays the long game, not with weapons, but with questions. And every move he makes presses just slightly inward. A suggestion here, a conversation there, a pattern only visible once you're already inside it. And while Mao Mao keeps her distance, uninterested, unreadable, Jinshi can't stop watching him. Not because he knows what Lakan is planning, but because for the first time, he realizes someone else might be moving the pieces. And that is when the game really begins. It starts with a quiet challenge. Mao Mao and Lakan, seated across from each other, a goward between them, poisoned cups at their side. The bet is sharp, but simple. If Mao Mao loses, she must formally acknowledge him as her father. If she wins, Lakan must redeem a courtesan from the verdigris house. The tension isn't explosive, it's patient, controlled. A battle between two people who both refuse to blink first. Mao Mao stays composed, unreadable as ever. But Lakan, for all his poise, begins to sleep. Not from pressure, but from something else. He lets her win, not because she outplays him, he's the better player and they both know it, but because he doesn't want her to suffer, he doesn't want her to drink the poison. This moment, barely acknowledged, barely visible, is the first time we see the cracks form, not because he's losing, but because he's caring. And that's what undoes him, because part of the bet was simple, the loser drinks. And Lakan, who deliberately drew the game to keep Mao Mao from harm, follows through without hesitation. That's where the trap was set. Mao Mao knew something most people wouldn't even think to notice. Lakan only ever drinks juice, never alcohol, not at banquets, not during casual chats, not once. So when she hands him that final cup, it's not just the end of the game, it's a quiet, clinical checkmate. Also, can I just say, I've never gotten so many comments about one line in a video. When I mentioned Mao Mao's love of alcohol before, I treated it like a quirky detail. But ever since then, I've been reminded repeatedly that alcohol is a form of poison. I get it now, please stop commenting it. It's also the perfect trap, because in trying to protect Mao Mao, Lakan drinks what she gives him, without thinking, without his usual caution, and it knocks him out instantly. That's the moment the mask falls. What comes next isn't a twist, it's a reveal. We don't learn that Lakan was secretly good. We learn that he was never wanting to begin with. Not villain, not mastermind, not absentee father. Just a man who built his life around strategy because he couldn't trust anything else. His prosopagnosia, his facial blindness, shaped everything. He can't recognize people by their faces, so he learned to track posture, voice, routine. He treated people like chess pieces because that was the only way he could see them clearly. Not out of malice, out of necessity. And yet, he saw Feng Shan. Not with his eyes, but with something closer. Their relationship wasn't soft or romantic. It was mutual recognition. Two people who understood each other without needing to perform. He left her not by choice, but by force. And by the time he returned, everything she had hoped for, everything she had risked, was gone. The scene where he's beaten in the mud by the verdigris house madame isn't dramatic. It's humbling. It's the one moment Lakan doesn't try to win. He just lets himself lose. And then there's Mau Mau. She doesn't embrace him, doesn't accept him, but she sees him. She leaves medicine, a blue rose, a preserved, withered symbol of everything he's too late to fix. Not love, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. And sometimes that's all there is. That's why this arc hit people so hard, because it didn't ask us to like Lakan, it asked us to look again, to understand, to admit that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't cruel, just broken. And that for once, the mastermind wasn't playing everyone else. He was trying to fix something he'd already lost. And the person who beat him didn't do it with poison, or strategy, or rage. She did it with observation, with restraint, with that quiet kind of defiance that says, I know who you are, and I won't let you define me. Episode 23 and 24 aren't about redemption, they are about perspective, about what it means to see something clearly. After spending so long assuming the worst, Lakan wasn't waiting to be understood, but somehow he is. Not forgiven, just seen. And in the Apothecary Diaries, that's more than most people get. Because once you understand Lakan, not as a mastermind but as a man, flawed, distant, still trying, you start to see how many other characters are carrying the same weight. No one is perfect here, no one is simple. And that includes Jinshi. So if you want to see how the palace's most untouchable figure ended up being one of its most human, that video is waiting for you. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, goodbye.